Let's first look at two types of turkeys and discover some similarities and differences in the breeds. Heritage turkeys are commercially bred turkeys. The breed is defined by its ability to reproduce naturally and survive outdoor living conditions. Hens, where the females live to be 5 to 7 years, and toms, the males, live 3 to 5 years. Wild turkeys are the largest game bird in America. Male turkeys have a black chest with glossy black-green body. The waffle, which is the area under the neck, is red. Today, we will need your pencil, Sharpie marker, and white construction paper so we can draw from observation lines and organic shapes. To draw the turkey, I will be using a Sharpie marker because I have practiced these steps already. You will want to start with the pencil first and go back and outline everything in Sharpie marker. We will be using our drawing guide and first draw organic line following the head and beak from the drawing guide to make sure the position is on the left area of the paper. This way we leave room for the body and legs. Draw the beak next. Draw a straight or slightly indented line perpendicular to the eye. Draw the upper and lower beak line. This determines how long the beak is. Then draw the line in the middle of the beak. For the body, I would start with pencil so you can get the size and the way you want it. But remember to draw lightly. I am imagining there's a big oval for the body, but I need to leave some room for feathers in the back. Then start in the middle front of the waffle of the neck and draw a curved line all the way around to the other side of the neck. This is the body. You may want to use a few attempts in order to get the body size the way you want. Next, draw the main section of the wings first. The line starts where the waffle meets the body. Draw a horizontal line, then curve down towards the bottom of the paper. Add scalloped edges for feathers. Next, add 2 layers of feathers. Depending on what type of turkey you are drawing, draw 1 or 2 layers of feathers. I find it helpful to draw the lightly in pencil lines around the section of the body where the top of the tall feathers will reach. Then draw the layers of feathers that are the closest to the body, short, squared off feathers, and then the longer and broader feathers that stick up in the air. Finally, add 2 legs for the turkey. It's helpful to draw the 2 lines for the legs first, then 3 to 4 points for the toes. If you would like to draw several horizontal dash lines showing the ground texture underneath your turkey, you can. Last for today is to study your turkey and make lines that will give your turkey implied texture. Implied or visual texture may be simulated to invent or created to look like another object. I am using a series of straight lines to imply the textured feathers for the wings and back feathers, and scalloped lines indicating the feathers closest to the body. Wavy, irregular lines indicate the wrinkles in the neck. I always encourage you to go back in and re-look at your drawings and look at your objects that you're drawing. I adjust mine by adding more feathers in the back. Watercolor paints are different than other paints, and I want to test out some other supplies you might be using with this assignment. The first is Sharpie marker. Sharpie marker is permanent marker, and it operates a little bit differently when we're putting watercolor on. The next is a traditional Crayola washable marker, and again, we're going to see how this is affected by the watercolor. And lastly, I'm going to test out an oil pastel, which you could also use a crayon as well to make your outlines with. So let's see how all 3 of these operate when we're using watercolor on top of it and how that differs from acrylic paint. First, I want to test out what water does on top of each one of these 3 mediums. The first is Sharpie marker, and it seems it holds up the lines pretty well. You see, as we go over the washable marker, like Crayola, it bleeds, and then it's fine if we go over it with the crayon. So this option, either Sharpie or crayon would be best, or oil pastel. Now let's see what happens when we put acrylic paint on top of each one of these lines. As you can see, acrylic paint is going to be much thicker, and it's going to cover up an opaqueness to our line work, so we wouldn't be able to see the lines underneath. Now let's test out and see what happens when we put watercolor. I add a little bit of paint on top, and you can see that that paint is very light. So if I put more of the pigment on, it's going to get much darker in color. So the Sharpie marker still holds up pretty well, the line work. Now let's do the same thing and put it on top. As you can see, the color changes because it's mixing in with that black. So again, the Crayola marker is not a great option when we use the watercolor. But as you can see, the crayon is going to resist, so you are still going to be able to keep that line work in your picture. So first option would be Sharpie marker, and then the second option would be the Crayola marker. Now I want you to see what happens when we mix these two colors. Some places you do not want this blending to occur, so you can see where it's wet going into wet. That would be a nice option, but when we have options on our turkey where we don't want those colors to bleed in, we're going to have to let those colors dry before we paint into the next color. Before we start watercolor today, make sure you trace over your pencil lines with black waterproof marker. Today you'll learn about color and use watercolor paint to paint your turkey, creating value by adding water to create light colors and adding more paint to create darker colors. We will also focus on texture of our turkey feathers at the end of class. As I paint the back feathers, I am controlling the darkness and lightness of the feathers by adding more water or less water to my watercolor paints. Is it too dark? If so, add more water. Is it too light? If so, swirl a little longer in your paint color. Notice how I left highlights in my feathers by simply not painting certain areas of my feathers and leaving the white. Now let's move on to the body of our turkey and all the colors in it. Start with your lightest color, mix a bit of brown or yellow or even orange. I like to use the cover of my pan set to mix unique colors. Add enough water to create a little puddle. The water allows the pigment to be light or dark. You might think you need to add white paint, which is not the effect we're going for, to make a lighter color, called highlights of our turkey. Paint the body of the turkey, the wings, tail, and the head. Once these sections dry a bit, you can mix slightly darker colors to add depth to these colors. This is called glazing. It means painting watercolor paints over dry areas of paint. This creates depth, and also you can add texture like feathers to your turkey. Study your images of the turkey. See how you can make brush strokes that capture all of the texture in your animal. I hope you enjoy learning about several watercolor techniques and using this wet on dry method for glazing so you can add texture to your animal. I am very excited and thankful you share your art with me. I can't wait to see what you create.